What's poppin', everybody? Cerebral4. Today we're revisiting Gardevoir GX in the standard format with a different style of deck. This one's going to be a little different than the one Gardevoir GX usually being paired up with Sylveon GX. I wanted to try and give it a more offensive flair, running Xerneas GX. Originally I was going to run a bunch of these and use this guy to put pressure early while I'm setting up Gardevoir. But with Lost Thunder, Gardevoir got a very good partner in Ninetales GX. Alolan Ninetales GX helps out this deck a lot. So I went with a blend between these guys. And this deck, it's not its right time in the meta. A lot of the best decks kind of don't care about this deck. You don't have very good meta matchups, but it's still a pretty good deck, I guess you could say. It's going to take care of the rest if it can't beat things like Buzzle and maybe Blazefalon and other decks that work on one energy, like maybe Zorok Jix. It might give you some trouble too. But metal, of course, you're going to lose the metal. But it's still a nice little deck I wanted to experiment with. And I know you guys really love Gardevoir GX. A lot of my viewers really like Gardevoir, I think. So I decided to post another deck profile. So the idea is the same. The main Pokemon is going to be this Gardevoir GX. It's very strong. The HP could have been a little better. The bottom stats, maybe one retreat would have been better. Infinite Force, while still a good attack, with the more and more HP Pokemon have these days, and when they don't really use a lot of energies to work, you can't really get one-hit knockouts, and that kind of sucks because then your opponent Acerolas, Max Potions, all that stuff, and you basically attack for nothing. But it's still a decent Pokemon, Gardevoir GX. That's why we're running it. Secret Spring is a good ability. The aim is to get a couple of these so you can sort of get almost like a Rain Dance sort of Fairy Energy Acceleration. Attach multiple energies like that. And then when you build up your dudes, you can do high damage, even get one-hit knockouts. So 3 Gardevoir GX is standard. We got to run our 1 Curlia for our stage 1 of the line. And then maxed out with routes. This is the best routes still. So basic line. And then for the new faces, as opposed to running uh, Sylveon GX, which is also a decent Pokemon you run with Gardevoir GX, we're running the Alolan Vulpix line now. Since Alolan Vulpix was classically, well not classically, but it was basically standard to use with the Gardevoir GX, helping you search your Pokemon since it was a stage 2 deck, helping you get it out quickly. Now since Vulpix is already pretty solid, uh, having a Alolan Ninetales GX, which is a great evolution to have, giving you additional support with Mysterious Guidance, letting you get 2 items so you can grab the rare candies, and being a solid attacker since we're running a fairy deck anyway, we're running the fairy energies. With Snowy Wind, you can do a solid 100 damage for 2, not bad, 70 damage to the active and 30 snipe. And Sublimation GX can actually be handy against the Ultra Beast. It's one of your ways to counter Blazefalon and get an easy KO like that. And other Pokemon, other Ultra Beasts, I should say. So it just goes great with a Pokemon like Gardevoir GX. I mean, you're fairy, you can attack. Uh, Vulpix helps you out to get the Pokemon, and Alolan Ninetales helps you get the items. It's just in general, this Alolan Ninetales GX with this Vulpix just make a great support combination that is basically great in any deck. But in this case, since we're fairy, we can attack too, so even better. So I only run 1 because I only have 1, but it's not like you want to get the effect multiple times, running 3 Vulpix. And space is always an issue in a deck like this where we run a bunch of cards. So you want your 1-up, get the effect off if you can. Of course, you want to open with this, attack earlier. But maybe we can go in a different route. As you guys, I run my Xerneas GX here. Now this Pokemon has basically a slightly weaker Buzzle GX attack with Overrun. You do 20 to the active and 20 to one of the bench Pokemon. Now there's no strong energy, there's no Diancie, there's no add-ons like that to boost the damage, but it's still a nice little 1 for 40 attack total. And originally what was the point of this deck was I thought, you know what, instead of trying to set up with Sylveon, I'm going to try and put pressure with a Pokemon like this while we're setting up. the traditional way, using supporters to get our stuff to evolve. But then I decided, hey, Alolan Ninetales is just way too good, so we're just gonna run an Alolan Ninetales and only run one of this guy. It's still a good Pokemon to open with, putting up the pressure. Aurora Horns can be a solid attack. And the best part about this Pokemon is actually Sanctuary GX. At a 1-off right here, it means that we have the shot of using Sanctuary GX, and it's actually a very strong, insane GX attack if you get it off at the right time. If you have a bunch of hurt Pokemon, especially Gardevoir GXs, which are stage 2s, maybe they won't die so easily, they'll get badly hurt, and then you retreat them. You basically use this and you're guaranteed a knockout on an opponent's Pokemon, and you heal all your guys. So you use this right, you use that at the right time, it's a game breaker. It's basically a fantastic attack to sway the game in your favor. Kind of like Dialga GX's GX attack is when you do it, if you use it at the right time, it's basically an extremely broken attack. So that's where this Pokemon come in. Now, like I've said, the focus isn't completely on running a bunch of these guys. I could have run more, but just one, if we open with them, it's good. And just having one for Sanctuary GX. The Pokemon you really want to open with is something like Vulpix here. Alright, and then for our last Pokemon, or our semi-last Pokemon, you got this Xerneas Prism here from Lost Thunder as well. This is an excellent card. It's our sort of only non-GX Pokemon basically that can perform a respectable attack with Bright Horns. So if I play against, I guess if I come across the rare, it has become rare now, but the Hooba from Shiny Legends, or maybe the Water Alolan Ninetales with Safeguard, and maybe even the Altaria GX, hint hint, then these guys are only out that can perform an attack and attack them basically. And Path of Life is always very useful. I've got a bunch of switches in this deck, and there's always the Titan Lizard too. There's always even one Guzma. So when you make a switch like that, you can move the fairy energies and instantly power up this Pokemon. So it's great. Prism Pokemon with 160 HP. There's no reason not to run a Pokemon like this. So great. And then the last dude is Tapu Lele GX for general consistency. Energy Drive can be handy too, you never know. And these are basically the Pokemon. Basically, we removed the Sylveon GX line and a bunch of other Pokemon I think I had, like perhaps Oricorio. A lot of the other guys are the same. And we added a nice little Alolan Vulpix line. Now, like I said, if you want and if you have more Alolan Ninetales GX, you can attempt to run them. But normally what you want to do is fill your bench with the Gardevoir GXs, at least have spots for 3. You want to have a Pokemon like the Xerneas and Xerneas GX just in case, and then you're probably only going to have one spot for Alolan Ninetales GX. So what you want to do is maybe have 2 of these down just in case one of them gets knocked out if it's in the active position, so you can evolve into Ninetales. But then the third one, you probably never play it. It really depends on the game state, but I hope you guys understand what I mean. You don't want to have an Alolan Ninetales GX out and then a lone Alolan Vulpix sitting on the bench where it can't really provide anything. You're not really going to attack with it. You're not really going to do anything with it. So that's the idea. This is mostly to have, a spare one, have a better chance of opening with it, and you never know what can happen. Okay, so now we go into the trainers, 32 trainers. I have my standard stuff. You gotta have your rare candy to evolve into your stage 2. Our balls, we have 3 Nest Ball and 2 Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball is very important because you really want to search Pokemon like Gardevoir GX, perhaps even Alolan Ninetales GX, and of course you can always get Lele with this too. So it's good. We have a bunch of cards that once we get going, we can discard. We don't have to care so much. 2 is not so many, It's not so bad. You can afford to discard a few things. Then I've got my Energy Searcher. We have Energy Lotto. Professor Leto would have been great in a deck like this, but unfortunately this is the only thing we have. I don't want to run Oricorio in this sort of deck. And what else? Yeah, the standard techs. You got to have the 2 Field Blower, and you got to have the 1 Stretcher. This might usually be reserved for Gardevoir GX, perhaps even an additional Alolan Ninetales GX, and even this guy, the Xerneas GX. Maybe if you miss your chance to use the Sanctuary GX and they knock you out, what you can do is, if you have a bunch of these, is get the Xerneas GX, use the Spring, Secret Spring, and if you have a couple of energies in hand, you can surprise power up this Pokemon. Your opponent is not even going to expect it. So great. And got an Acrobike here just for a little bit of a straight draw. Once again, maybe this can be handy. Just draw a card, help us get a piece that we need. Only one, because if you got Ultra Ball, you got this. I don't want to discard too many cards. We want our resources. All right, and what else? I think that's it for the items for the most part. I've got the double switches. We don't really have many Pokemon with one retreat. I think the only one might be this guy, Tapu Lele, so that's why there's no escape board. So I decided to go with double switch. It's pretty good. We have other ways to switch as well. It would have been nice if we had the Fairy Garden, but we don't. It would have worked great with this guy too. Speaking of stadiums, my stadiums are kind of weird, but it's because there's not really any, fairy specific stadium as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why, in a deck like this, it's not like we really need stadiums. We could have just dropped all of them and add a lot more consistency options or additional max potions. I almost forgot about this card. I'm going to talk about it in a sec. But because of the Prism stadiums, that there's been quite a few. We have quite a few right now with Lost Thunder, and we're going to get even more. Having a stadium to get rid of your opponent's stadium is more important than ever now. And since Field Blower can't do it, you need some counter stadiums. So I decided to go with Sky Pillar to basically make myself immune to the Tapu Koko and Weavile strategies if they're still played. And then we have Lysander Labs. So I decided not to run any tools in this deck. I wasn't really running any in the previous Gardevoir GX with Sylveon. So this card makes sense. With Lysander Labs, we can negate our opponent's choice bands. And a lot of the times, they really need those to help them get one shot on Gardevoir GX and other Pokemon. So hopefully this helps us out. It's going to get rid of any other tools that they have. And I know what you guys are thinking. Maybe I should have been running the Fairy immunity tools, the stuff that you're immune to fighting Pokemon, fighting GX Pokemon, but those are really inconsistent, and I don't want to waste space running them. Then they might be dead. They get field blowered, all that. So I'm not really too keen on those. Maybe if you run a Fairy deck that doesn't require a lot of cards, but a deck like this, Gardevoir GX needs a lot of pieces, so we can't afford to run cards like those, like the Fairy Charms. Okay, so these are the stadiums, and yeah, the last thing to talk about is Max Potion, our sort of secret weapon. Maybe it would have been good to run more, like at least 2 or even 3, but once again, space is quite an issue in this deck, and I mean, if I can help it, I really just want to get the Gardevoirs out quickly, fill them up with energies, and then basically become a juggernaut of a Pokemon with Gardevoir and get one-shots on everything. That's the point. I really just don't want to get hit and then having to heal. That strategy. But one max potion is pretty good. There's a lot of situations where it can help us. But yeah, only one for the space issue. And since we only run one, you're probably going to do everything in your power not to discard it, if you can. Okay, and now the only thing that's left is the supporters, and we have some interesting supporters this time around. You gotta have your 4 Cynthia and the 1 Copycat. This guy can be pretty good, but a lot of times he can be pretty dead. So, man, maybe, I mean, especially when a card like Eriga comes out from the Sun and Moon 9-cent attack bolt, this guy's definitely going to come out for Erigas. It can be a good card at the right situation, but I really hate the fact that it's kind of too luck-based. Chorus is more reliable, even though it has to do with what your opponent has down as well. So don't dig this so much, but we still got to run at least one. Then we got to have our 2 Lily. This card is pretty good with a lack of supporters right now, like Juniper and Sycamore. Uh, if we get the turn 1 effect with Lily, it's pretty good. We have a few good turn 1 supporters. This is one of them. So 2 is a good number. It can be a good supporter late game too, drawn to have 6. Then you gotta have your other turn 1 supporter, Professor Elm's Lecture. I love this card in a deck like this. If we see it, I can guarantee getting a bunch of routes, so I don't have to worry too much if my opponent starts picking on them. And you can get Vulpix, which is great. Evolve into Ninetales. A bunch of Pokemon. Well, it's basically just those, but it's basically 7 targets, which is enough. It's great. Elm is just great, honestly. And one of this is good. So between one of this, the Lilies, my Nest Balls, and Ultra Balls, and the Lele, we should have a good turn 1 most of the time. A deck like this will always brick. You just can't escape it. But it's pretty consistent like this, I would say. I don't want to run more of this and then he's dead. Even one can be dead depending on the game state. Like if you set up with Nest Balls and then you get this, it's probably not very useful. Then the other supporters are going to be the 2 Taytanliza. This is handy for the switching effect. And just shuffle and draw 5. Kind of consistent, even though it's not a lot. At least it's a reliable, semi-reliable number. So 2 of these. And then we got to have the 1 Volkner as our Scala dude. The 1 Guzma to switch, and our 1 pull card. This can be pretty handy in many situations. It'd be great if I could run more, but space is a thing, once again. So this is another card you just don't want to discard. You probably want to save it, use it at a specific time. Gardevoir GX appreciates, hitting a hurt target that has a few energies on. So that's why this guy's in here. And then the last supporter, one that I'm finally happy to run, is Olivia. This card was pretty good in my eyes when I reviewed it way back in the Burning Shadows days. And I thought plenty of times how to make this card work, adding it. But the problem is that it's a supporter. So if you get Tabulele GX, you can't use it on the same turn to get something and draw. And basically, if you run any sort of stage 1 or stage 2 GX deck, then there would always be Ultra Ball and other cards. So it wasn't so good. But now with Alolan Ninetales, we can use this attack to evolve, get our rare candies, and then we can use a supporter like Olivia and instantly get the Gardevoir GXs. Man, you can even actually use this to get the Alolan Ninetales. So it's like a couple of combos that it gives you flexibility to perform. Like you get the exact pieces as you want, and then you go from there. Like if I need to get Alolan Ninetales GX, you get Alolan Ninetales GX to get the rare candies. Or if you have this guy, then you go, okay, I'm gonna get a Gardevoir GX and let's get a Lele for next turn, a supporter. So with Alolan Ninetales GX, this card becomes very good. Immediately when I was making this deck and I knew I was going to use Ninetales GX, this card came to mind. It was great. And from what I understand, I've been seeing more people run it right now, so people have realized this might be a good card in certain decks if you run an old Ninetales. So it's great and it's reliable. It's reliable searching for our GX Pokemon. You can even get me this guy, just any GX. It's just nice. It's really nice. So as a one-off, it's a great card. So that's basically the deck, guys. The last thing, I guess, is the 13 Fairy Energies. We kind of want, I usually run 12, but 13 in this case is one of those situations where I want that extra. There's no DC to boost our damage further with Gardevoir GX. I really just want to be consistent with this guy and other Pokemon that really require a lot of Fairy Energies. And that's basically the deck. Now, disclaimer once again. Now, if you maybe run this deck for a local tournament, or you run it in an area where people don't really run the hottest shit, then maybe you can perform good. It's good against the rogue decks. You can perform well against rogue decks. But unfortunately, like more than half of the meta decks, you could say, the best decks, it doesn't do well against Lycanroc GX and Buzzhole. It's difficult. Blaze Falon, You know, Blaze Balloon doesn't have a lot of HP, but what it's usually going to do is discard the energies on itself to make sure that it makes your life hard to knock Gardevoir out. And it only really needs to discard 4 energies to get a one-shot on Gardevoir. So it's really easy for him to get a one-shot. So your matchup isn't that great on that as well. Basically, any sort of metal deck, you have an auto loss. You can't do anything against metal decks, especially the new Solgaleo promo. The one that for just 1 DC does 120, exactly enough to knock you out with weakness. So that really sucks. Uh, Metal is going to destroy you. That's one thing. But you do okay against decks like Gramble, I suppose. You're going to do great against Rayquaza GX, perhaps. You got to be careful because that guy can get dangerous on you. It's faster. But you have the weakness, so you take care of that guy really easily. Uh, what else? Malamar, I don't know. They discard energies when they attack. Maybe Giratina, I guess. If they run the Malamar, Giratina, Malamar decks, those you might be okay too. So you have a few decent matchups that maybe you can wear off eventually once you get your guys out. You know, you heal with Max Potion. You use this guy's GX attack at the right time. You know, they're going to have a harder time dealing with the Stage 2 GX. But a lot of the meta decks right now, you know, fighting, Blacephalon, Zoroark GX, it's tough. Like, you need a bunch of energies even to knock out a Zoroark GX in one hit. And if they run their Acerolas and other healing methods, then they kind of control the game. Uh, Lucario GX, just a lot of Pokemon that function on one energy. Even Golisopod, you have a hard time against. So just want to make that clear, but I still want to use this deck a bit. It can be pretty fun. It can be kind of cool. It's a shame it's not sort of its era anymore. Uh, this guy needs a bigger multiplier to counter those big decks. And yeah, stage 2 GX decks, you kind of have trouble in general too. But it's still fun. We're still going to use it. And I know you guys like Gardevoir GX, so I decided to show you guys another version. I have some good games with this, so it's not going to be too bad. So hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys subscribe and leave a like. If you're not subscribed to my channel, now is a great time to do so. My channel is an excellent hub for all things TCG, both contemporary and retro. Leave a like, share this with your friends, and thank you guys for watching. Sabro94, what's up?